Hi, welcome to Grow Crazy with Tanya. Today I'm going to be starting some seeds. I have a few different varieties I'm going to start today. One of them is an ancho hot pepper from M.I. Gardener. I have a jalapeno pepper from Baker Creek. I have a California Wonder Bell pepper, another one from M.I. Gardener. I have some jalapeno peppers that were from some store-bought burpee seeds, and a mini red bell pepper from Baker Creek. One other variety I'm going to start today is the cucamelon from Baker Creek. I really love these. They are like almost like a cherry tomato in the tomato family. These are like almost cherry cucumbers in the cucumber family. One of my favorites. Alright, my favorite seed starting method for my outside plants is actually using the Jiffy pods. You can buy little Jiffy pod greenhouses. These utilize the tiny pellets that are, if you read the fine print, they're 32 millimeters. Or 36 millimeters. They're 36 millimeters. I really like these because you can rebuy the refills here on Amazon. You can buy a really big bag for a lot cheaper than you can buy the whole little greenhouse. So what I do is I start the seeds, use the little pods, and then I keep these little trays. I bleach them out and I reuse them the next year using new refills. The Jiffy pods come in a few different sizes. My favorite is the bigger ones here. So these, it's a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can see that. All right, I like to start my tomato seedlings in these. These are the, what size are these? These are the 50 millimeters. So when I buy my refills, these are the 50 millimeter refills. And there's one more intermediate size. I've used these to grow things like peppers typically. So these, if you can see them, they're a little bit smaller. These are actually 42 millimeter size. So when I go to refill, it's a big bag of about 42 millimeter pellets. So again, I save this plastic piece here. I wash it out really well with an old dish brush and some spray bleach to kill anything like fungus or bacteria that might be in there. And then, yeah, I refill it and it's good to go for the next season. These particular ones are brand new. So this year I'm going to be starting from a few brand new ones. If you didn't want to reuse the trays, you can actually just get the pellets and you can put them in something like a little tinfoil tray. It's not very thick, it's about an inch thick. Or you can go thicker, whatever you want. Any kind of little tray, you can get the pellets and you can just start them in here. The downside to doing something like this is you don't have that cute little top that actually works as, oh, I have one right here. That works as a little terrarium that helps keep the humidity in for your seeds. So you're missing that, but once the little seedlings start, they do really well in these little trays. Other ways to start seeds are making your own seed starting mix with some peat, and you have some other soil or some worm castings, whatever you want to use. Pre-moistened, and you can use any type of container. Like you can use little reusable containers with little holes in the bottom. If you can see those little holes. I don't love these because firstly, making your own seed starting mix is very messy. I do a lot of my seed starting in the house, so I like to keep things clean, tidy. I don't like to make a big mess everywhere. These particular things also, not only filling them up can be very messy, but when I take them out to the garden and they have little seedlings in there, I don't like the process of taking them out. So you flip them over. Well, if I'm trying to get the one out of here and I flip over the whole thing, or, you know, it's just these plants might be damaged. When I'm trying to just get this one out, you can try and lift that one out, but then you might damage it. There's a lot of this and that and moving around, and I just think that there is an increased risk of damage to the plant I'm trying to plant, and as well as the ones around it. So any kind of little trays like these, I just don't love them. Let me see, I have another one here. This one actually from the store. I was trying to reuse that one. Same thing. You have to almost flip the whole thing over, or, you know, hold your plants in and try to dump it out. I don't love it. You can try and squeeze it, or you can try and push on the bottom and push it up through, and then, you know, you might be damaging those roots. I just don't love them. I don't love it. Another thing you can try is like little tiny pots. So you can put your own seed starting mix in reusable pots or some sort of plastic containers that are maybe a little bit bigger. I don't love this because this is one big container. Same thing with little like solo cups, same thing. So this is very similar to a solo cup. You just cut holes in the bottom of the solo cup. And a lot of people do that, and that's great for them. That's really great. But in the ways that I've tried, I just don't love it. I don't love it. They don't sit nicely together. It's a big mess with your own seed starting mix. And then if you don't have perfect germination. You may have planted, 3 or 4 seeds in this one tiny pot, but then you're going and you only have one little pot, whereas I could put a couple of these actually. So if I had a couple different containers, and let's see, so in the same space, we'll say roughly, if we really squeezed hard, I could get 3 in the same space that I can get, 12 of these little Jiffy pods. I love the little Jiffy pods. They just keep things nice and tidy. All I have to do is add some water, let them expand, and then wham bam, I'm ready to plant my seed in there. And when I plant my seed, it's good to go. I just cover it up. If it needs a little extra heat, like a lot of times peppers do, I can put it on a heating mat and I can watch them. I can see them through the little thing. A lot of humidity and moisture will accumulate. I can shake it off and I can see what's going on without disturbing them. And then my most favorite thing about these Jiffy pods is not only the ease of planting and the cleanness of it, is that when I have these little seedlings in here, they start growing and the little roots actually prune out themselves. So when they start touching the air, they'll grow in this little net, and then I can just pluck this whole little thing out. It's a plant. All I have to do is pick it up. I don't have to try to squeeze it out. I'm not damaging any of the other plants. I can say, oh look, my little pepper, I'm gonna plop it in my hole. There it is. Total perfect. And I like that. So it takes less stress on the plant that I'm planting, less stress on the plants that are around it in my seed starting tray or contraption here, and it's just much more simple. You might be spending a little bit extra because there is a cost involved in paying for the pellets, but when it really comes down to it, I'm willing to pay the extra small cost for the pellets and reuse the trays than I am to make a big mess all over the place, all over my, my working space in my house, and then also in the garden sometimes when I'm out there trying to plant these little seedlings and you're just making a mess because you tip it over and stuff goes everywhere. I'm just not a big person for that. I don't love it. And I really like that I can start things from seed that typically aren't started from seed. They do better if you just plant them right in the ground. Well, if you start them in a Jiffy pod, the seeds, they don't have to be disturbed, so the roots can stay intact. The whole little root ball, you can just plant it right out. I really love that. So that is my favorite thing with these Jiffy pods. I will continue to use them even though they aren't the cheapest method. They're not the most expensive either. So, and if you're looking at, I can, make 12 plants here versus, or even some of these like bigger ones, buying $3 for a seedling at the store. I can plant them myself. So it's less than $3 for me to buy the refills for these little trays. Buying the tray the first time is actually a little bit more than $3, but I keep these trays for years and I don't let them sit outside so they don't get weathered. I just, I wash them up right away and I keep them in storage until the next season when I need them, and it works out great for me. Okay, for these peppers that I'm starting today, I decided I'm not going to use an entire tray because I want all of my peppers to be together. I don't want to mix the peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers and all those other things. So I'm not starting enough peppers to do an entire tray. I'm just going to do 20, which I'm going to do here in my tinfoil tray. And I'm going to use my seed pellet refills here just to put 20 pellets in here. Just going to lay them out. There's 2 different ways that they go. So if you can see very closely here, that side is the top. It has that little divot there, and then you have the back, which is just the bottom. So I want to set it just like that, little divot facing up, and then when you pour the water on, you want to make sure you pour it on the top where it can soak up the water. You don't want to overpack your tray. I'm not starting enough in this particular tray for it to be an issue, but they are going to expand pretty big, so I'm going to give them plenty of room to move around. Alright, so I'm going to add some water here. You can measure it out using the directions like it recommends. I don't really measure it, honestly. I take my tray here and I just pour it in. So I pour in enough to pretty much cover the top of these little guys, if you can see that. Alright. And then I let them sit for a while. I'm going to make sure that I get them all nice and wet. And then I just keep adding water. So I add a little bit of water here and there, making sure not to overwater them, in which case they break apart and they're very soggy. In the event that you did put too much water in, you can actually squeeze them a little bit and some of the water can come out. But that does help to hydrate the seeds and it promotes germination. If there's any leftover water in the tray, I do dump that out. I don't want them to sit in the water because then you get things like fungus and you get bacteria and that dampening off happening. You don't want that to happen. These little seedlings here, I'm going to have to put a cover on the top. You don't have to, but I'm going to do that just to help hold in some humidity. Okay, now that I have hydrated the seed pods fully, I'm ready to plant my seeds. So I like to mark all of my seeds. You can use any tiny little markers. I have noticed it's best to use smaller ones when you're planting seeds, because if you put a little canopy on the top, or you have a little greenhouse on the top here, if it's too big, it will stop you from being able to put a top on. So I mark these. I do mark them with permanent marker. It will wear off in the sun. Typically, when I plant the little seedlings out in the garden, I only need to know what they are until they start getting a little bit bigger. If you are concerned that when your plant reaches maturity and you still don't know what it is, you can invest in a special weather marker. Alright, so I'm going to fill out all my little markers here, and then I will plant my seeds. Okay, now that that is done, they're ready to be planted. When I'm planting, what I do is I actually take a chopstick, just a plain little wooden chopstick, and even though there's a little divot for the seed to go in, they sometimes get covered up. Here's an example. So this one has been covered up. And this one, there you go, you can see there's still a nice little depression there. And for this one, not so much. See the difference? So if I need to, I take a chopstick and I make the little depression a little bit bigger, just so it's easier to put the seed in there. I don't go very far, just in there. All right, perfect. And depending on the type of seed that you're planting, you want to follow the directions for how deep they should go. If it says to go, ½ an inch deep because it's a squash seed or something, you of course would probably be using the bigger pods. You don't want to use the small pods because it's a big plant. You need a big pod. Some of these pepper plants, they can go with these medium-sized pods, or I would even, if I had plenty of them, which I didn't have enough right now, I would even plant them in a bigger pod. I am saving my bigger pods, my biggest ones that I have, those 50mm ones, for my tomato plants. So I'm using what I had more of, which is the 42mm, I believe it's 42, for my pepper seedlings. So let's see, these are going to be the jalapenos. And I plant a couple of seeds in each pod. So what I do is I grab a couple and I just stick them in a little depression here. And what I like to do with these is actually plant one on one side of the pod and then one on the other. In the event that I get two seedlings that grow, I can actually tear these little pods apart. So it's not necessarily just one plant for one pod. If I wanted to do one plant for one pod, I could, but I have plenty of garden space, so if I want to, this is typically what I do. Can you see there? So one on one side and then one on the other side. And if this grows two plants, I can tear it right down the middle. Whoops. I even use my chopstick here. I can separate them out just a little bit, but I'll tear it right down the center if I get two really good seedlings. If I have one that looks a little weird, looks a little bit weak, maybe not as strong as the other one or other ones that I've planted, I will discard it and just go about planting that one. However, if I want to rip them apart, I can actually just squeeze in the middle and I tear them apart. So I'll have two big plants, tear them both apart. A lot of times the roots will not be intertwined. The big roots will stay separate if you plant them on opposite sides. So this is a way, especially with the bigger pods, that I can get more than one plant out of one pod. I don't necessarily plan on it, but I do enjoy it when it happens. Press them down just a little bit with my stick here, and then I squeeze the top. So I squeeze them closed. Oh, there's water coming out. There we go. I squeeze them closed, set it down, good to go. Okay, what I'm doing with the chopstick here is I have planted my two seeds in there. I push them in just a little bit and tuck them in. One's already in there, tuck that in. It doesn't have to be perfect, they'll still grow. Sometimes I get a little messy with my seeds and I actually drop some in the tray. If I end up dropping some in the tray and it's close to the ones that I have marked, I actually just leave them in there. Sometimes they'll germinate, especially if they're close enough to one of these pods, it will actually grow up the side. Then you have another plant. It's like a bonus. Alright. And when all the seeds are tucked in, you can even squeeze them just a little bit. I'm going to have to empty some of this water out of here. Squeeze them down just a little bit to make sure all the holes are filled up nicely. For my peppers, I do like to put them on a heating mat. Okay, now I'm in my grow room. What I have down here is the seed tray that we started. I have just some cheap plastic wrap, nothing fancy, that I laid over the top just to give it a little bit of humidity in there. I actually have just one piece of cardboard. And I say one because it's like the side of a box. It's not necessarily like a box folded in half or anything. And then just a simple seed mat. So I lay the seed mat down, it's plugged in, it's warm, and then I have this one piece of cardboard that's underneath. It helps to just make sure that it doesn't get too hot and that it heats evenly. And then I have my seed tray, my little piece of plastic, they're ready to go. And then for lights, I really just have some regular, they're not even grow lights, they're just fluorescent lights. Some simple, plain, something to give it some light. When they do emerge as seedlings, I will take this plastic off and I will move this tray to some LED lights that I have. They are grow lights. Those will be better for the plants when they actually start germinating. So for now, this is going to be fine. I do have a oscillating fan going. That's going to help to just kind of keep things moving around. When the seedlings do emerge, I am going to keep that fan on them. I'll probably turn it up a little bit. I am going to check these. I'm going to check these every day, make sure that they're doing okay. Okay, now I'm going to start my cucamelon seeds. Now these are different from the pepper seeds because I want them in a different container. So what I'm using here, again, are my peat pellet refills. They're the medium size, and I'm putting them into, it's actually a produce container. I think there was mushrooms in here or something, but I, again, washed it out really good. And now my little pellets are going to fit in there. I left them more than enough space. I'm going to start 6 pellets with these cucamelon seeds. These are the little cucamelon seeds that are from Baker Creek. I love these little guys. All right, I'm going to do the process pretty much the same. Make sure the little pellets are the right way up. Add my water, let them expand. Then we'll add our seeds. My little pods are fully expanded with moisture. They're ready to go. So what I'm going to do is take my chopstick and I'm going to poke a hole on the sides here. Fill in that middle hole. So each side, there we go. When I'm going and making this hole, I'm really only making it about that deep. Can you see that? I've noticed that cucamelons are a little bit slower to germinate, just like peppers. They're a little bit slower to germinate. So I'm starting them a little bit early than all of my other seeds. All right. And if I drop a seed and it's not exactly in the little depression that I made for it, it's not where I want it to be, I can't put that seed once it's wet back into the envelope. So I'll either leave the seed in there and see if it germinates and grows, or I will take it out and probably have to get rid of it. Most of the time I just leave it in there because sometimes you never know which seed is going to germinate or which one's going to be the most strong. So after the seeds are in there, let's see it. There we go. I cover them up. Alright, these are a little extra wet, so what I want to do is actually squeeze these out just a little bit. You can see there's some water coming out of them. Pat down their tops, and hopefully within a couple of days, maybe a week, we'll have some little germinated seedlings. Alright, and there they are. They're just going to hang out in here. I'm going to put them down in my grow room. I will put them next to the peppers with the light. I may leave the top off of these. It depends. You can put the top on with some plastic wrap if you like. Otherwise, you don't have to. Thanks for coming along with me today and planting my seeds. We'll see you next time.